Stand by.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornblut, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
There's not a single coach in the world that can say that they wish that there was something there that they didn't want to take back. We've all have said and done things that after it's happened, we've said, God, I wish I could take that one back. It's just the heat of the moment. It's a competition. That doesn't make it right. But at the end, we're human beings, and we're going to make mistakes, and our mistakes are made in a competitive environment, and they're made chasing 17 and 18-year-olds around.
Welcome into Sports Talk here on South Carolina Radio Network. That was Frank Martin on ESPN's Outside the Lines, chiming in on the Doug Wojcik situation at the College of Charleston, which is now a national story and a huge mess for the Cougars and their athletic department and newly minted president Glenn McConnell to clean up. Kevin McCrary and the Professor Tom Hayes with you tonight. A rainy evening here in Columbia, looking out our windows here in our South Carolina Radio Network studios. A lot of rain out there, but we're cozy.
Just drive carefully,
and drive
please.
in here. Hope you're doing well, Pro.
I'm doing quite well, thank you. A nice cooling off period for us this evening.
Yeah, enjoy it, and then it'll get humid. The sun will probably come out for another hour and just, melt us all.
Just looking for see if anybody's going to break through with a score. This is unlike yesterday.
Yeah, no
soccer.
Score. Soccer haters will love that. No score there in extra time. Now they played 99-plus minutes, and still no score between Argentina and the Netherlands. So we will see if anything breaks on the program. We've got a nice show for you tonight. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, we're going to have Ben Martin, who's going to be jumping on an airplane soon for England for the Royal Liverpool course. British Open next week. The former Clemson star, Greenwood native, will be playing for the Claret Jug, so we'll catch up with him. You heard Frank Martin in the Open, an intriguing panel on Outside the Lines. I had Tom Izzo. You'll hear what he had to say as well. Tom Izzo actually was Doug Wojcik's boss at Michigan State. Wojcik was on the staff with Izzo, and Andrew Miller, who was on with us last night with the Post and Courier, was also involved in that panel, and they were all chiming in. Martin didn't really address anything specifically related to Wojcik. It was more general coaching terms. How far is too far? Where is that line that you don't cross? One thing that Martin said that was pretty intriguing was you can't get personal. If you get personal, then you really shouldn't be coaching. He tells his players, if I get personal with you, I can't coach you anymore. We have to have a relationship where everything's educational and it can't be personal.
Especially girlfriends and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, the stuff in the report was very damning. Now, Wojcik is denying a lot of that, obviously, through his attorneys. But he is also saying he is not going to resign. It is a huge mess down there at the College of Charleston. congratulations to former Clemson two-sport star Kyle Parker. He's back up with the Colorado Rockies and in the starting lineup playing first base for the Rocks this afternoon. And in the second inning, knocked his first career base hit in the bigs. Single to left field for his first career hit. He's 1 for 3 today, and the Rockies are leading the Padres 6-3 in the ninth. So Kyle Parker, little milestone for him. His debut, his first start, was against the Dodgers, and that was the game that Clayton Kershaw threw a no-hitter. So he was on the wrong end of history that night, but a little personal history for him today. A couple other games in the bigs right now. Miami and Arizona 1-1 in the ninth, and the Blue Jays lead the Angels 7-6 in the sixth. And I'm pretty sure the Dodgers lost again. I mean, they scored 5 runs.
4-1, I think.
Yeah, they scored 5 runs in the first last night against Detroit and lost 14-5. And then they were down 3-0 early today and ended up losing there. The All-Star break can't come soon enough for the Dodgers. The Braves back at it in the Big Apple tonight. They have lost 3 straight, won 9 in a row. Now it's thrown it in reverse here with 3 straight losses, trying to get back on the winner's side of things against the Metropolitans tonight. Irvin Santana on the mound, first pitch 7-10, and Morgan's still doing Gwinnett Braves, so he is doing the AAA game again for the Braves, so he won't be on with us tonight. He'll be back with us tomorrow night.
Okay. And we'll find out if the Braves want to make any tweaks to their roster, maybe in middle relief, that sort of thing. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned the story last night. Andrew Miller, the former North Carolina star pitcher, now with the Boston Red Sox, could be on their radar according to the AJC, but we'll find out all the latest when we get Mike back on with our Braves report tomorrow. A couple of other notes that we'll pass along, and we can also get to your phone calls if you want to reach out. Grab a line, 800-956-7266. I want to hear from some people your thoughts on this Doug Wojcik situation. If you've read the report or heard about it, what do you do if you're Glenn McConnell? What do you do if you're the College of Charleston? How do you get out of this mess? And it is a mess because Charleston, why they didn't fire him when you have all of this, when you read the report. Now, it wasn't public yet, and maybe they didn't know it was going to go public, but whether it goes public or not, how do you not fire him? You just suspend him for a month. The AD wanted to fire him. The outgoing president, maybe he didn't want to leave a scandal behind him and just wanted to try to sweep it under the rug on his way out the door, but you had to know that report was going to be a matter of public record at a public institution, and the Post and Courier gets its hands on it. It goes in the newspaper. Now everybody knows what happened, what you knew a month ago, and you didn't make a move. So now Wojcik's going, look, you guys, you didn't fire me. I took the punishment that you gave me. You can't come back and fire me now and say it's for this. You can't double jeopardy me. So now the Cougars have to figure out how much they're going to have to pay him to go away, because I agree with Gene Sapikoff and Andrew Miller that there's no way Doug Wojcik can coach another basketball game in Charleston with all of this lingering out there. I mean, that would be the equivalent of giving you a self-imposed death penalty for your program.
Yeah, I mean, he's been neutered. He can't recruit. I'm not sure the fan base will be behind him. Right now, I think probably what you're looking at here is a school that's trying to cut ties with maybe a bad hire, a bad fit, and a guy who's trying to save his career. Because he thinks he's a college coach, he can be successful as a college coach, and maybe he takes a year or two off, maybe goes and runs clinics or coaches overseas, or maybe find an assistant job or whatever in the NBA, and then come back years later maybe with a clean slate. But it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Remember when Bob Knight had to clean out his locker and everything in Indiana, and then he reappears at Texas Tech.
Bob Knight was a winner. I mean, winning is important too, and Wojcik hasn't won big like Bob Knight did. Wojcik was fired at his last stop before Charleston at Tulsa, and so but he's again, and we'll hear the comments from Tom Izzo earlier today, who really, went to bat for a guy that worked for him and said that's what he likes about him. This is a guy that went to the Naval Academy. You'll remember he played with the Admiral David Robinson at the Naval Academy, so he has a military background, and he handles himself and his program in that way. But that was one of the big debates on the ESPN program today with Andy Katz, was how far is too far. And you'll hear Tom Izzo talk about Wojcik, the coach, and then you'll hear Frank Martin, who brought it up himself. Hey, everybody knows I got into a little bit of trouble last year for using inappropriate language, but he made the point that with all the things going wrong with our youth today, the breakdown with the family, the educational system, the guns, the violence, how coaches are talking to players to teach them and make them better is pretty far down the list. That's a paraphrase there. We'll hear from Frank Martin coming up.
It's kind of interesting. Coach K, also a military background, played for Knight when I think he was 18 or 19 years old, and Knight was barely, 23 or 24, and was head coach at West Point when he coached Krzyzewski there. And those are intense people. I think probably the most successful coaches we see, if you want to talk about a track record over the last several years, which they bring tremendous intensity to the bench, and that's Krzyzewski and Tom Izzo. I mean, Izzo goes to the fact that because it gets kind of physical if you look at the officiating in the Big Ten, that certain practices he has his players wear shoulder pads because they're really going to bang underneath the basket. So, but these guys are ultra successful, and so you don't hear much about their antics because of that. And that'll be interesting to see if maybe down the line somebody moans about them at some point.
And I think that's what has to concern coaches is, this story. You had the Mike Rice situation at Rutgers, and some other coaches, even on the women's side, have been disciplined for abrasive behavior towards their players, not necessarily all fired, but discipline in the case of a guy like Frank Martin, who was suspended. But you got to think going into next season, Martin knows that if I have another outburst like that, the punishment could be a lot more severe just for language. He's never been accused of doing anything physical. So we can get your thoughts on that, 800-956-7266. We'll talk some college football as well. Anything that you want to kick around and discuss here as we get you over the hump here on Sports Talk on this Wednesday evening. You can also reach out and connect with us in a variety of platforms. That's the beauty of 2014 technology. You don't have to pick up the phone and call necessarily. You can also interact with us in 140 characters or less on Twitter at SportsTalkSC, where we are always tweeting. Join the thousands of people that follow us on Twitter. If Facebook is your thing, you can go to facebook.com/Sports Talk Radio Network. Like us there. We post things to Facebook and even Twitter that don't always make it to our website, the mothership, sportstalksc.com, where everything goes, even before we go on the air. We can't be on the air 24 hours a day. We can only come to you live 2 hours a day, but fortunately we can stay connected with you at sportstalksc.com 24/7. And you can also go there to get a link to listen to us live, and that link works on your smartphone. Or if you're sitting around and you want to watch the video stream, you can go down to the bottom of the page, and there it is, live and in color. You can watch us on our sportstalksc.com video stream doing Sports Talk here in our South Carolina Radio Network studios. Oh, big! I don't know why I buried the lead here. I should have mentioned. The watch list season continues. We had the Lou Groza Award out today.
Mm-hmm.
It's big. It's big. The Lou Groza Award. Pope, you know what the Lou Groza Award is for?
Absolutely.
You do. Tell everybody what it's for.
You're going to tease it and then I'll tell everybody what it's for?
Well, I am teasing it. That's what I'm doing. You know what the Lou Groza honor goes to every year?
Yes.
Well, I'll give you a bigger tease. Lou's nickname when he played was the Toe.
The Toe. Yeah, that gives it away. Yeah, to the best kicker. We got Ben Martin coming up here shortly. I'll tell you who's on that Lou Groza watch list. I know everybody's dying to know. Elliott Fry, USC sophomore kickers, the Lou Groza watch list member on that list today. Had 99 points for the Gamecocks last season, led them in scoring. Also set a season record with 54 extra points, kicked 4 field goals in that win over Florida, and had a field goal in overtime, that thriller against Missouri that won it for the Gamecocks. So there it is,
And
today's watch list.
You put 2 Fries together and you have one Lou Groza. That's how big Lou Groza was.
And he's got a holder named Fish, so you have
That's
Fish
right.
Fry combo on every placement for the Gamecocks. 800-956-7266, the toll-free number as we head out to the phones. Jim is in Rock Hill. He's with us first. Welcome in, Jim.
Thank you. Concerning the situation down there at the College of Charleston, back years ago, decades ago, the president of the University of Chicago, which was in the Big Ten at the time, and was somewhat a Big Ten football powerhouse, made the comment that higher education and commercialized athletics has about as much in common with each other as a bull and a china shop do. And I think there's a lot to that. These schools that want to go big time athletics, they're bringing in, you might call it the dean, comparable to a dean of a department. Very few of these people really have degrees any further advanced than a bachelor's degree. The environment that they work in is not one that where there's civility and patience and research and conversation, discussion. It's somewhat incompatible with the academic environment in a way. And so they have these coaches that come in and they're paying them big salaries, of course, and there's a lot of pressure on them. And that's what you've got now. It's unfortunate that these things happen and that these moments occur, like Frank Martin said, they cross that line and you wish you could put that toothpaste back in the tube, but it's not going to go back in. So those are my comments about it. I hope the College of Charleston can get things worked out. I think they've got a basketball program down there that's in a good conference, the Atlantic 10, and
CAA.
I think they've got
the
good
CAA.
future.
Yeah,
the coach. Yeah, you're right. They've got a good future. I don't think they've got it with Coach Wojcik, but and I wish him well too wherever he goes. I hope he learns a valuable lesson from this, and it makes him a better person, and perhaps even a better coach in the future.
Well, it's interesting. Obviously, a lot of these guys were educators. Some have master's degrees, and if you go back to Iowa's coach who was at Boston College some years ago, and I think he also coached Stanford, Dr. Tom Davis was a PhD. Some of the guys that you look in college football, what was it? I think Derek Dooley was an attorney. I mean, some of these guys are high in academia, but the hot call to the sports, it gets the temper going.
All right, gentlemen, here we go. Stand by.
We'll get back to your phone calls momentarily here on Sports Talk, but want to head out to the guest line and welcome in former Clemson All-American Ben Martin, who is packing his bags for the long trip across the pond. The Open Championship coming up next week, and Ben has qualified. And first of all, congratulations. I know that has to be very exciting, this whole experience of playing in the Open Championship.
Absolutely, and thanks for having me on. Yeah, counting down the days till head across the pond, and looking forward to the opportunity.
And you got in. You knew you were going to get in when you finished tied for third at Congressional at the Quicken Loans. Just take us through that moment when you realized that you had qualified, and you obviously played very well, and that's a high-profile tournament there.
Yeah, it's a new system they started this year. They took out the 36-hole qualifier and threw 4 spots into the Quicken Loans, 4 spots in the Greenbrier, and 1 spot at the John Deere this week. So it definitely adds a little bit more excitement coming down the stretch. And not only, I was playing with Justin Rose, who won the tournament on Sunday, but in the final group with a chance to win the tournament and also a spot in the Open Championship. So it, definitely a few more nerves and a little more to think about coming down the stretch.
When you think about going across the water and some of the treacherous conditions, including maybe some weird changes in temperatures, the terrain of the course, are you going through what we call the process of visualization now, thinking about how to navigate such a links course and some of the things you would do and when you can take chances, that sort of thing, just thinking your way through playing a sort of mental British Open in your head?
I think to a certain extent, it's my first trip over, so I really don't know what to expect other than what I've watched growing up on TV. So some looking at the weather forecast, the extended forecast, kind of just have the mindset, I guess, going over there that whatever the conditions are, that you have to embrace them. When the weather gets tougher, I think it takes a lot of guys out of the field because they don't really know how to handle it. But if you kind of get in that mindset that bring on the worst of the worst and just embrace the challenge, I think that can only help out.
Well, tell me this: in embracing the challenge, when you're in a tournament setting, do you go through with your caddy on, okay, yeah, we're going to take a gamble here. I'm going to try to make this shot. I'm not going to be careful. Do you pick your spots where, lack of a better term, you're going to get reckless?
I think at least I always try to take advantage of good opportunities. Assess the situation and know, am I looking to make birdie here, or is this a hole where if we walk off with a par, we're going to be happy and gaining shots on the field with a par happens a lot in major championships. So, I think it's a situational thing, and when we have a green light, a good pin or a good number, then certainly it would be aggressive. But there's certain situations where a 50-footer for par or for birdie and a 2-putt for par that is gaining shots on the field.
Talking with Ben Martin, former Clemson All-American, getting set for the British Open next week at Royal Liverpool in England. And Ben, looking at your game right now, how do you think you're playing? Where do you think your game is? You had the great finish. You played well at Harbour Town where you had the 3rd place finish. We talked about what you did at Congressional. You've had some top 15s in there. Where do you think your game is right now going into this major?
Yeah, it's been good lately. Harbour Town down in Hilton Head kind of turned my season around. I'd been struggling. Only made a couple of cuts in the 7 or 8 tournaments leading up to Harbour Town. So to get a 3rd place finish there, be in contention on Sunday, certainly gave me a confidence boost going into the rest of the year. And then I was in the final group the next week in New Orleans. You know, been in having those late tee times on Sunday afternoons a couple other times. So I feel like I got a little momentum going into these next few weeks and going into the British Open, hopefully the PGA in another month or so. So really just looking to kind of continue the success I've had over the last 2 or 3 months.
Lucas Glover will be making that trek as well. He's won a major championship, another former Clemson Tiger. How much have you leaned on him, and how much will you lean on him in terms of advice and kind of showing you the ropes for this first major?
A little bit. You know, I played a lot with Lucas my rookie season out here in 2011, and certainly being another Clemson guy, you know, he's more than happy to help me out with any questions I have. And that's probably something that I'll do coming up in the next couple of days is maybe try to schedule some practice rounds with some guys who have been over there before and be able to ask questions and try to learn as much as I can in the short, really 3 days that I have to prepare from the time I get there to the time the tournament starts.
Yeah, when do you leave?
I'm at the John Deere this week up in Illinois, and then we're taking a charter flight, probably 20 players, and families going over Sunday night. We'll get in Monday morning. I'll probably just go out to the course, maybe walk the course because I've never seen it before on Monday, and then play 18 Tuesday and 9 Wednesday, and be ready to roll on Thursday.
So this is a routine of yours where you don't carry any clubs. You just want to walk, look at the course, and then you go with a practice round later on.
I think that helps out a lot for a course I've never seen before. Just kind of, you know, taking more time to really, you know, visualize the hole and where I want to hit shots rather than going right out there and hitting them. I think I can learn a little bit more the first time around without taking my clubs out there.
How much of your family from Greenwood is going to make the trek with you?
A couple. My wife's going, and then my mom and brother are going to make the trip over along with a cousin. So we'll have 4 or 5 of us over there, a small group of Martins.
Now, like the time change when you go from playing this weekend in Illinois to all the way across the pond, how much of a factor is that? That seems like it could be nothing, but maybe something when you're playing at what would be 3 in the morning our time, or vice versa.
Yes, I guess it's something that, you know, everybody's going to have to deal with. That's coming from the States, so I guess really the only thing I could equate it to would be when we start the season in Hawaii or start the season on the West Coast. And I think there's an adjustment period, but hopefully by Thursday, you kind of your system's own time and ready to go. And I know the tee times there roll from kind of 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. Just because it stays light for so long. So the time could certainly be a factor, but it's something that a lot of guys are dealing with.
All right, Ben, well, best of luck to you. We'll be following you, and we keep up with you on Twitter as well. And I noticed that some of your tweets are golf, but you sneak in some football tweets, some Clemson football tweets from time to time, too.
Every now and then, looking forward to kicking college football season off in a month.
Yeah, you're like the rest of us. Well, we appreciate it. We'll definitely be following you very closely over there at Royal Liverpool next week. Best of luck to you, Ben.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, Ben Martin joining us, former Clemson All-American, playing in his first major championship next week, trying to get that claret jug. And you know, he went pro after the 2009 season, and he has been moving up the ranks. And he's right; he had missed the cut for missed it at the Valspar Championship, the Arnold Palmer, the Texas Open, and the Houston Open, and then at RBC Heritage in Harbortown Golf Links, tied for third. Finished at 9 under par in that tournament. At Zurich the next week, he was 11 under, tied for 15th, and he's been under par in a lot of his tournaments, or at even par, including that 3 under at the Quicken Loans National, where he clinched a spot at the British Open.
Well, he sounds like he's looking forward to getting this opportunity to go across the pond and see what he can do on a links course, and Great Britain. It'll be very interesting.
PKs. Argentina's up.
And went early.
It's 3-2 Argentina.
Is this to be the decisive moment?
I think he's probably first.
It's a substitute who steps forward. Maxi Rodriguez. He's already on his CV got the goal of the tournament.
Yeah, they hit this
at one World Cup. If he scores this, he will have another claim to Argentine football history. Maxi Rodriguez sends Argentina into the World Cup final. Brazil's worst nightmare has just got a whole lot worse. Argentina will meet Germany in a World Cup final for the third time. After 1986 when Argentina won, 1990 when the Germans won, this year's World Cup final will be Messi against the machine. Bob Lee, it's all yours.
Thank you, John, for all the talk of how well the Dutch defense played tonight. And Argentina put their offense and all their chips on the center of the table. It was Sergio Romero saving Ron Vlaar, who played an epic game on the back line for the Dutch. And then on the third attempt, saving Wesley Sneijder. And then Maxi Rodriguez, who had come into this game on the 100th minute, an extra time substitute, and Jasper Cillessen got a hand to it, but with that kind of
the last
power,
guy in the world I want to be right now.
through.
You got a piece
They
of
did not have a substitution left to put in. Another keeper for that moment.
It's going to have to be special to beat Germany. I mean, Germany played everybody.
You watch that replay, though. When you watch
the
penalty before that, it leaves you to wonder if Krul's in there, Rude. Does he make those saves?
Yeah, it's easy to say now. It's easy to say. You could say he had a hand on it as well. In another one, he was close. But I think to go in the quarterfinals with penalties and in the semis, you have to go through penalties again. You know, you need a lot of.
And again, Holland needed that substitution before. He needed of course. So it's impossible to keep up the substitution for the goalkeeper.
And Santi, this was a game, as we said, the chips are on the table with three forwards and Messi out there. You could see this game winding down in the second extra time, inevitably walking towards this moment.
Very, very long tactical game. It was a very good football match. Not as yesterday. I think yesterday we didn't see a great football match. Today we did. Yes, it's not the amount of goals that define how good a football match is.
We ever had a greater contrast between two semifinals, the global rout last night and this tactical chess game over 120 minutes and the penalties in Sao Paulo?
But I'm left here shaking my head for Ron Vlaar, because he had the game of his life, Ruud, and then to open up with the penalty,
and then opens up
that's
with
the
a
only thing
penalty
he'll
kick.
remember.
Of course, he had a great game. I think he felt so confident to take the first penalty. He didn't take it very well, and Romero was in the right spot at the right time. Yesterday was a crazy game.
All right, stand by, guys.
It's going to be Argentina and Germany in the World Cup final Sunday. It went down to PKs, and Argentina wins it. What was it, 4-2 in PKs?
4-2 in penalty kicks.
So there you go. That is now set. A couple of other notes that I wanted to pass along, and again, our thanks to Ben Martin for joining us in that last segment. Enjoyed having him on, and we'll definitely be pulling for him. And as we do all of our locals, when they play in those major championships, and maybe he can rub off or get some of what rubbed off on Lucas Glover not so long ago at the U.S. Open at Bethpage when he won. The Clemson Athletic Ticket Office announced today that it has sold all of its season tickets for the Tigers' 7-game slate this season. Now they just have single-game tickets on sale, except for that last one against South Carolina. They're not selling any of those. I think all of those are claimed and accounted for at this point. They had a renewal rate of over 90% and 4,500 new season tickets sold. Clemson has now eclipsed the 2013 season ticket numbers by more than 1,000. Their first home game, September 6th against South Carolina State.
Yeah, that's big, seeing that how last year, you had both the Florida State and Georgia games at Death Valley. So it's interesting. Maybe the opening part of the schedule not as interesting, but the fans are clamoring. They think they're going to see some good football, even though the turnover on offense, and see a more salty Clemson defense, and maybe this team maybe can usurp the throne and kick Florida State out of the chair, so to speak.
Yeah, however, the Tigers, they have South Carolina at home this year, but they have a pretty good-looking home slate. In addition to the Gamecocks, you have, mentioned South Carolina State. That's their home opener. That's going to be a bloodletting there. No disrespect to Buddy Pugh and the Bulldogs, but that's not going to be pretty. But they get North Carolina on September 27th, NC State, the Textile Bowl, Louisville, Bobby Petrino will come in, so you'll have to, hide the women and children. You got Syracuse coming in on the 25th, Georgia State on the 22nd, and South Carolina on the 29th. And so they have 7 home games, but you have to throw out Georgia State and South Carolina State because those aren't games that get anybody excited. But those other games, you're going to go out to the ballpark saying this could be a pretty good football game. North Carolina, NC State, Louisville, those are all potential for good football games. We know the South Carolina-Clemson game, at least the build-up, the anticipation, you never know what's going to happen in the game itself. But 4,500 tickets, season ticket packages sold already, more than 1,000 last year. And no doubt about it, Clemson football is at its highest point right now since the Danny Ford era. I mean, the excitement level, fans aren't upset. There's no, you better do this if Dabo doesn't win, or Tommy Bowden spent like 6 years on the hot seat. Dabo at the beginning, let's face it, even Dabo at the beginning, Clemson fans, every time they lost a game, they were getting on him. But now, fresh off the BCS win against Ohio State, the win over LSU in the bowl game the previous year, the win over Georgia, Clemson fans are feeling pretty good. In fact, the Clemson official Twitter feed, which I have enjoyed reading, but they did take a little shot at South Carolina last week. This is the Clemson official Twitter feed. They tweeted, it was on a Thursday, and they were doing the Throwback Thursday, and it was 6 months to the day that Clemson beat Ohio State in the Orange Bowl, and the tweet read, 6 months ago, Clemson became the only school in the state of South Carolina to win a BCS game.
It'll be the last one.
That's a little dig at the Gamecocks. So despite the fact that South Carolina has reeled off 5 in a row, Clemson fans are really brushing that off their shoulders, and I think it, much to the frustration of some Gamecock fans that really want to have them under their thumb completely. Clemson fans are just whatever. We're winning big games. We're ranked in the top 10 too. We won the Orange Bowl.
But to refute what you're saying, psychologically, that tells you it's in their minds, or they wouldn't even have mentioned it. See, there's the deal.
Well, and they do have the clock up, that's true. That's true.
That's what Kelsey Quarles said. See, I love the clock, because what does that mean? We're in their heads. So you gotta toss some of that stuff. And I think Clemson can turn the tide against South Carolina if they toss that baggage. Just toss it.
Just toss it. Well, that tweet, again, that's from the official Clemson football tweet. And the clocks tell you they're taking the approach of, we're going to be so dialed in for that game. And, Auburn had the beat Alabama signs up last year. It worked for them. Coming up in our next hour, we'll let you listen in on what Tom Izzo, Michigan State coach, had to say about Doug Wojcik, and Frank Martin's appearance on ESPN's Outside the Lines as well, and recruiting. It is a busy time of the year from a recruiting standpoint. The Gamecocks picked up a commitment last night. We'll tell you more about him coming up in recruiting and pass along all the next pieces that could come down here over the next few days. There's always, anytime Corn goes on vacation, there's always going to be at least one or two commitments. And we got the one
You
yesterday.
were looking for one.
We're going to have one tomorrow because, the kid out of Virginia, the running back, Turner, A.J. Turner.
A.J. Turner, yep.
Is going to, unless he changes his mind, unless he's going to go back in time, he's going to get like a DeLorean and go back and do it tomorrow. That wouldn't surprise me if he's going to try that at this point. But he's supposed to commit at some point tomorrow there at the opening. And so we're going to probably get another one down the pipe. You can keep up with recruiting, of course, as a lot of people do now. A lot of people head to sportstalksc.com to get the latest recruiting news and information. And as we get closer and closer to SEC Media Days, which it's next week, by the way, all next week, SEC Media Days, get ready to go to our website and get great stuff from Birmingham and all the way into the ACC Media Days. And next week we have Dabo Sweeney's golf tournament. If you're into such things, the lineup of participants for the SEC Media Days next week has been set. USC is going to bring Steve Spurrier, of course. He's going to be there, along with Dylan Thompson, J.T. Surratt, and A.J. Ken. So you've got a quarterback, a defensive lineman, and an offensive lineman. On Twitter today...
And all three seniors, too.
All three seniors. Mm-hmm. On Twitter today, there was a lot of people wondering why Mike Davis wasn't included in that group.
Not a senior.
Well, you don't have to be a senior, though.
Yeah, I know.
Jadeveon Clowney wasn't a senior last year. Ace Sanders and Bruce Ellington weren't seniors when they went. It's the head ball coach's call on who goes down there. And, maybe he figures Mike Davis can go next year if Mike Davis is still around, if he doesn't come out after this season.
But let's face it, the argument is you got Dylan Thompson. He's waited his turn.
Yeah, Dylan Thompson needs to
play
be there.
quarterback.
Yeah.
A.J. Cann, probably the unsung hero of that offensive line, probably has been the one piece that's been there the last 3 years at that guard spot. You just plug him in, and he shows up. J.T. Surratt, he's the guy that has to be the glue of a defensive line that lost 3 starters last year, including Jadeveon Clowney.
Texas A&M's bringing their punter, Drew Kasser.
They'll get a kick out of that.
We're going to bring the punt. So let's talk about this. If you're out there doing something, it means some other people screwed up. That's your job. If you're a punter, you're only on the field because somebody else messed up. All right, we're going to be back top of the hour break. Another hour coming your way. Don't go away.
Wow, bringing the punter. That's good stuff. He must be a Colquitt. Never seen such a big group of babies. Where are you signing, buddy? Call me. Let me know. Furthermore, let's give Cleveland the number 1 pick. I'm no good at math, but I'd love to see the odds on what the odds are of you getting it 2 years in a row. I think he handed it to him, and they went and drafted that schmo from Fresno State for no reason. Like, oh, Jesus, Cleveland. All right, 1 more year. You got to bring Braun back. Yeah, UNLV. I always get Fresno State and UNLV mixed up. Yeah, Anthony Bennett. Yeah, it's true. North Pole Hoops, pro. Yeah, Mike Kabongo, the point guard from Texas a couple years back. A lot of Canadians floating around. You're banking on Bryson Williams. You've already got enough problems. Such a strange thing. Has he already been tossed out of Cincinnati? Has he been tossed out of Cincinnati yet? The things will change when he sees a polished NFL guard come to the second level. That'll change his mind. That's not some Wisconsin quarterback. You better want to be more than 5'10", $180. Bob Sanders. Jordan Lynch is too slow. Not Jordan Lynch. John, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, his career was based on the fact that people still ran the ball back in the day. All that spreading out nowadays, well, you're going to be exposed. Get off the field. Bye, Jason Sehorn. But he was representative of white folks actually trying to play DB, so everybody had to know who he was. He's white. Oops. You know, Jerry Rice and the gang went out there just loving that. You gonna line this dude up across from me? You not know your history? Stand by.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornblut, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
You've got Kevin McCrary and the Professor Tom Hayes tonight. Phil Kornblut on vacation. He's beaching it this week down in the Grand Strand. He'll be back with us on Monday. Glad you are with us tonight, wherever you have us dialed in around the state on our many great affiliates. If you're looking for one, we've got close to 30. The entire list is on our website, sportstalksc.com. You can also click on the link to listen to us live at sportstalksc.com. Watch us on our live video stream at sportstalksc.com as well. At Twitter, SportsTalkSC, Facebook, Sports Talk Radio Network. Josh Kendall in the state newspaper talked with Steve Spurrier Jr., Gamecock assistant coach and recruiting coordinator, and there are 8 members of the Gamecocks 21-man signing class that have not enrolled in school because they have not qualified right now. Defensive ends Dante Sawyer, Justin Thomas, Kalen Ritchie have previously they've already announced that they will not meet qualifying standards, and they're going to attend junior college with the hope of re-signing at South Carolina. We knew that. You still have defensive backs Wesley Green, Chris Lamons, and Darren Smalls, along with fullback Joe Blue and defensive tackle Dexter Weidman. They're still holding out hope they can get the qualifying standards taken care of and everything good to go in time to join the Gamecocks in August. A quote from Spurrier in the GoGamecocks.com story: "We would like to hope that at least 2 out of the 3 cornerbacks are going to make it. That's a pretty critical area for our 2014 season, getting those guys here." I think that would probably be the understatement of the summer there.
Is that the academics or is that the clearinghouse? Or both?
It doesn't say, and a lot of times they try to stay away from specifics what people need. Whether it's clearinghouse or whether they need a test score. South Carolina expects to play and start at least one first-year player at cornerback this season. Al Harris Jr. and DJ Smith, they're already in. Now, Weidman, the 4-star prospect out of Saluda, who was originally committed to Florida State, is still alive to qualify according to Steve Spurrier. He said they have a plan either way with him, but he said there are 3 or 4 that kind of fit into that group. They're just waiting to see what happens. So I think the defensive backs, that's a story to follow this summer because, are all those guys going to step in and play right away and contribute? Probably not, but depth at that position is so important. Getting guys in, then it could be a problem where you're thin this year and going into next year thin and inexperienced. If those guys are on campus and the system getting coached up, at least they have an opportunity to be a part of your program, even if they're not a contributor on Saturdays yet. But it's got to be a major area of concern for Lorenzo Ward. They had inexperience at linebacker last year. That was a concern. But a smart defensive coordinator, you can mask some of those issues, at least at the beginning part of the season at linebacker. If you have problems at defensive back, experienced quarterbacks will take advantage of it.
I will say that if there's anywhere in the defense I want inexperience, it's in the secondary. I got to have seasoned people up front. I mean, they can mask a lot of things.
Well, I love Doug Wojcik. I not only wanted to read about him, and I think Doug was a lot in the same boat.
But he hates CFC degrees.
Earlier this afternoon on ESPN's Outside the Lines, Andy Katz, who was sitting in for Bob Lee, had a panel on to discuss the situation with Doug Wojcik at the College of Charleston, a story that has now gained national prominence in terms of things going on. And, what is going to become of Wojcik? Well, we don't know yet. It doesn't look good for him. But a lot of people have an opinion on it, including Tom Izzo. He's one of the people that spoke on ESPN's Outside the Lines and had an opinion. And he talked about Wojcik and what he meant to his program at Michigan State when he was on the staff there.
Well, I love Doug Wojcik. I not only one of the reasons I hired him is his military background, his discipline, his organizational skills, his family, incredible wife and kids, and and not knowing everything that went on, I don't know, but I can promise you this: he was not only well liked by players, but he was also. I visited him down in Charleston and met a lot of players that he coached. So not knowing everything that happened, Andy, I don't know, but bothers me because I think this guy is. I know he was involved in a lot of jobs and one of the young stars coming up.
Tom, what is that line that divides coaches from coaching and trying to motivate to where then it maybe potentially crosses over into something that is unethical or demeaning in nature?
Well, demeaning is a good word. I mean, if you've ever heard kids talk to kids, there's a lot of demeaning things being said. And I think that line is one that moves. It moves according to where you are and what kind of programs you're in and what kind of communities you're in, different aspects of the game. To be successful at this rate, and again, I use the military since I've had some dealings with the military. The demands on a soldier are unbelievable, and a lot of those guys are 17, 18, 19 years old. And so, it's a moving line, if you ask me, Andy, and yet, no question, you can't go above and beyond it, but I think for the most part, coaches are going to deal with kids like I would my own, as need be. If they need to be disciplined, if they need to be talked to, I think that's kind of up in the air. I don't think you can grab a kid. I don't think you can, do any of those things. But not being there, it's hard for me to say. I think I'm hard on kids, but I also think they know how much I care about them, and I think Doug was a lot in the same boat.
That is Tom Izzo, one of the most respected coaches in the business right there, speaking very highly of Doug Wojcik. And there are people that will tell you that Doug Wojcik, did things the right way. He has people that endorse him, and Tom Izzo, it doesn't get much bigger than that. So I thought it was important to play some positive with Wojcik because it's all been pretty negative. Now, I'm not defending him at all. I still think the stuff in that report, it's just so bad. Like, I don't know how you recover from that. Either you have to deny it and prove that didn't happen, although there was an investigation that kind of did that and said that it did happen, but I don't know how he goes forward. Frank Martin, who is no stranger to controversy when it comes to something, I don't want to say like this, Pro, because it really isn't like this.
No.
It's completely different. It's a different scenario. You're talking about words, bad words. He uses foul language, and that rubs people the wrong way. He's intense and uses foul language, but he's never been accused of being violent. He's never been accused of getting overly personal.
He's been
with
accused
players.
of being scary with that stare.
He is, the Frank stares, but most of his players, former players, they'll tell you that they respect him and appreciate him, and that's why a lot of people want to play for him. That's I think one of his recruiting strengths that he uses is, he goes in there and says, I'm going to be a strong male influence for your kid who might not have that. A lot of these guys don't. Here's what Frank Martin had to say in his conversation with Andy Katz.
And joining us now, South Carolina head coach Frank Martin. He's on the phone on his way to recruit in Philadelphia. And Frank, in the new era of coaching today's youth, what is the line that you cannot cross?
Yeah, Andy, I don't know if there's a line that you cross or don't cross. I think all that is things that we as coaches have to address in recruiting. I think there's different lines for different people. I think there's different, that's what I love about coaching, is that there's not a book written on how you manage every individual the same way. It's a never-ending change. You learn every day from the people that you manage, but that's where recruiting comes into play. You got to recruit guys that fit who you are and that believe in you and you believe in them, and then continue to build that relationship.
Now, there's one thing, obviously, to use obscene or vulgar language. It's another to actually engage in any kind of personal attacks as a form of motivation. Where do you stand on whether or not you can ever go down that road and be a little bit more personal in trying to motivate a particular player?
Yeah, Andy, as you well know, I got myself in trouble this past season, and for the choice of words that I used. But it's listen, we're in a never ending changing of the world right now, and what I find amusing is that we got all these issues in grassroots education. We got all these school shootings. We got all these things that are taking place that are impacting education in a bad way. And we're worried about, and we allow our children to play video games that are nothing about violence and guns and disrespecting groups of people, and the same thing with the music that's listened to. But, yet we want to put so much emphasis on choice of words that someone uses in an education setting. And I understand that what's appropriate, not appropriate. I just think that we're taking advantage of certain things to make bigger things than they should be, when our whole focus should be on grassroots education and doing a better job of preparing these kids so when they get to the stage that college athletics is, which is obviously on television, and it brings the attention it brings, we have less of these situations, but us as the adults, we have to do a better job of managing.
Frank, how often have you ever used any kind of personal information in trying to get after a player?
Yeah, Andy, there's not a single coach in the world that can say that they wish that there was something there that they didn't want to take back. We've all have said and done things that after it's happened, we've said, God, I wish I could take that one back. And it's just the heat of the moment. It's a competition. That doesn't make it right. But at the end, we're human beings, and we're going to make mistakes, and our mistakes are made in a competitive environment, and they're made chasing 17 and 18-year-olds around, which is a difficult age. I don't know if you remember what you were like, but I remember what I was like. 17, 18 was an age time where I was a good kid, but I was difficult, and and I needed people to make sure they kept me in line and doing things the right way. So, with all that said, it's never appropriate to cross the line, to make it a personal battle. I tell our players all the time, the day it becomes personal, I can't coach you anymore. I need to make sure that you and I have a personal relationship. That way we both understand each other, and the educational part of it never crosses that line.
All right, there's Frank Martin talking about his approach, and again, the personal aspect. I think that's the closest he really got to talking specifically about the Wojcik scenario, because there were some very personal things when you're talking about girlfriends and mothers and all that sort of thing that don't really fall onto the lines of how does that make a guy better. But everybody's different, and I think the other point he made, too, is how you recruit. You know these coaches, and that line's different for different coaches. But when the College of Charleston hired Doug Wojcik, they knew what kind of coach they were getting, a military, hard-nosed guy, and that's how that was a reputation he had. That wasn't a big secret. Same with South Carolina and Frank Martin.
Phillies 3? I would have guessed Chicago, Atlanta, NYC, and LA being the 4. Don't mess with Texas.
All right, Sports Talk continues here on South Carolina Radio Network. Kevin McCrary, the Professor Tom Hayes at your service. Cornblue still enjoying vacation. Our phone number is 800-956-7266. You can reach out, grab a line. You can also hit us up on Twitter at SportsTalkSC and email us, talkback@SportsTalkSC.
You know, you mentioned about Frank Martin. It's sort of interesting when you look at it. Frank Martin is a guy that usually if he recruits, especially during the season, he likes to have players come in to see one of his practices to see how intense it is. And his deal is, okay, if you think you can deal with this, you're our kind of guy. But if you don't think you could deal with this, you might want to look elsewhere. He's looking for his type of guys. Now, when people talk about this, it depends on how much charisma you have with your players and the ability to be intense. I can look at the professional level where people said with the professionals a coddle, but notice how San Antonio always surrounds Popovich with guys that can take that crap. I mean, he'll get in Tim Duncan's face, and Duncan is like, he'll stand there and just listen. And so sometimes your stars or who you depend on to produce on the court sets the tone for the rest of the team. And so if he sort of listens and then goes about his business, Pops, slaps him on the shoulder or whatever, and he goes by his business, you notice San Antonio can deal with Popovich. He's a military guy, Air Force guy. But you go to other teams, Popovich's way of coaching wouldn't work.
With the Wojcik situation, though, if it was just players and just being hard on players and using foul language, I shrug my shoulders at that.
The department thing,
but when you have other people, the entire athletic department saying, "Wait a minute," when there's video leaking of him berating a staff member for getting vans instead of a bus, then it borders on unprofessional at that point, and then you're just creating a hostile work environment. That's not good for anyone, and it just sounds like everything's just come bubbling to the surface with this report that was, the AD wanted to get rid of him, and that's a whole other story. Andrew Miller in today's Post and Courier talking about the AD down there and how he's been conspicuously silent throughout this whole process.
Well, he made the hire,
and there's talk that his days could be numbered at the College of Charleston.
Here's the deal, and this is what still sticks in my craw. Let's say that Wojcik does not have any behavioral problems. None of this existed, K-Mac. Think of this. And just for him to say that one line, you need to burn your degree. I mean, that's what keeps sticking in my head. When you start to attack the academic integrity of the institution in which you work, I mean, that's not good.
I tried getting in touch with Pat Riley's people to see how the conversation went, but and hit me back yet.
Stay tuned. Recruiting coming up in our next segment. You don't want to miss some of the big stories going along there, including the commitment for USC. Dylan Thompson's going to work at the Manning Passing Academy. The Gamecock quarterback will be helping at the annual academy this week in Louisiana. The Manning camp is led by former Saints quarterback Archie Manning and his 3 sons.
Just don't oversleep.
Peyton, Eli, and Cooper, also known as the kid that didn't play football in the NFL.
Well, that's the one.
AKA the least favorite. Archie.
Oh, that was a shot. Well, he's the oldest. People don't realize that he was the oldest and he was the receiver. In fact,
and he's a pretty successful lawyer, I believe.
I think so. Remember, he had a really severe neck injury and he could not play football.
Otherwise, he'd be playing quarterback for the Bengals.
Right now, he'd be playing receiver. Remember, Peyton. It was an interesting dichotomy of the sons in which you would think that the older son was the quarterback, but Peyton was the younger kid who was the quarterback, and Cooper was the wide receiver.
Pope says he's an energy trader. I don't know what that is.
Wikipedia tells me he works for Howard Well as an energy trader.
That's
so
Wikipedia.
Oh, he's dealing with
coal
those.
For.
No, he's dealing out with those oil wells, I guess, in Louisiana
somewhere.
Yeah, Louisiana, that oil.
There's a lot. I mean, it's a pretty prestigious thing. 43 other college quarterbacks are involved, including Jameis Winston, Bryce Petty, and Marcus Mariota. Get the Heisman winner and 2 other guys that will be competing for the Heisman this year. So take note of that. Also wanted to play this for you. This was, I thought, a neat little piece. It was on ESPN.com. It was Marcus Lattimore, San Francisco 49ers running back. He did a short little piece. It was called Going Home, and he took an ESPN camera back to his hometown, back to Burns High School, and kind of gave a tour of where he was from. And you're not going to be able to see the visual, but I listening to it, you can get the visual, especially if you have been to this area and around Burns High School into the upstate. So this is Marcus Lattimore taking ESPN back home.
I'm glad to be from the 864, Spartanburg County. We're in Welford now, Welford, South Carolina. Town about 1,600. This is where I spent most of my time at during my childhood. Now this is my old neighborhood. I lived here for 8 years. This is where they came to play football. We sit right here. This was the bench. You ran into these. You was done. This was out of bounds. We have a crowd too. Crowd of girls out here. Live. It's the upstate. It's the Midlands, which is where Columbia is. Then it's the Low Country, which is Charleston and all that, the beach area and stuff. I'm proud of the upstate. I'm an upstate guy. This is where it all started. The football journey, at least. You see, the weight room open. They tried to see if you could break, basically. They tried to break you in high school, in 9th grade, right when you come in. Get up 5 in the morning, they'll blindfold you, yelling at you. It was crazy. 30 up and downs every Tuesday, Thursday, about 30 yards. Crazy stuff, but it's Burns. That's why we so good. It's the wall right here. All the big games. First touchdown right here. Number 2 in the nation against number 5. First touchdown was inside zone. It was about 100 degrees outside, and the starting running back had caught cramps. I was in 9th grade. Got an inside zone, it opened up perfectly. I had fresh legs. I ain't been in the game, so I got fresh legs and hopped in the end zone for first touchdown. I mean, just this whole state is just, I mean, it's just a sense of pride about, people who do the right things. Oh, I'm not moving away, so I ain't gonna miss it.
All right, Marcus Lattimore, little tour. I thought that was interesting. He actually tweeted today that he's got some big plans coming in the near future for small towns in South Carolina. That he's been committed to giving back to this state and this area. And I thought the best part of that piece to me was when at the end he said, "I'm not going to miss it. I'm going to keep living here." He's not going anywhere. He's a guy that never forgot where he came from.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a small town, and it's very interesting. It's almost like the people, they're so genuine. You see people that you've known, your whole life, and even if we've spread out around the country, we see each other maybe once in a while, and it's almost like we never missed a beat because we came from the same place. It's interesting. I had the best of both worlds because I grew up. What I thought was the best of both worlds. I grew up on a small town on a college campus, and I think that's the best. That's the best of both worlds. You can go in at the age of 6 to 8 years old. You can run through a girl's dorm and hear them yell "man on the hall" and that sort of thing, or you can go out and pick pecans out in the woods sometimes. It's interesting little life I had, I guess, that I look back on very fondly of now.
Yeah, I liked that he said they had girls out there watching them play football.
Oh yeah, well that was part of the deal.
Yeah. So it's big summer for Marcus Lattimore with the 49ers. They drafted Carlos Hyde from Ohio State. We know they have Gore. They have they have a lot of depth at that running back spot. They weren't expecting anything from Lattimore last year, but now it's going to be his opportunity to step up and show that he's healthy, he's mentally and physically ready to go out there and withstand the beating that you take playing running back in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think the key for Lattimore is the fact that if he can stay healthy, he is such a valuable guy because I have not seen a guy that can run like a bruising back, but also very adept at finding holes in the defense to give the quarterback an outlet if he has to go to a third receiver. You saw him numerous times when Connor Shaw would roll out of the pocket. He would just stand there, and then he'd find a little opening, and if Connor couldn't throw deep, he'd just dump it off to Lattimore, and he'd be right where he's supposed to be. And those are kind of things where a guy's head is in the playbook. And when you have a back like that, he's that's very versatile, especially in this pass-first NFL. I think he can be a key to any future San Francisco success.
All right, the Braves and Mets underway in New York, and surprise, surprise, the Mets are leading 1-0 in the top of the third, and they scored in the first inning again. The Braves, for whatever reason, can't beat the Mets right now.
I don't think they like Citi Field.
It has been a house of horrors for a lot of teams, most notably the Mets.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the Mets have not been a good ball club. And Granderson has been the guy that's been the Braves' thorn ever since he's traded uniforms from the Yankees to the Mets.
Look at this. The sideline reporter for the Braves broadcast is wearing one of those Vote J Up. I mean, it's like every other shot is Justin Upton. I mean, they really want to make sure Justin Upton goes to the All-Star game.
Also, they want to see how many viewers they have. Say, oh, yeah, see, the viewers were watching our broadcast, so they voted for Upton.
They have bubble gum that they're giving out in the press box. I saw an AJC reporter had some double bubble.
Promotional guys with too much time on their hands.
The Braves are really trying to get Justin Upton in the All-Star game. He's put up All-Star type of numbers. I don't have a huge problem, but we kind of laughed, and Mike Morgan talked about this during our Braves report about how it's pretty hokey the way they do this with the texting and the voting, and it is a little bad, especially when you see the broadcast shilling to this level. It's like the Justin Upton
popularity contest.
The Braves brought to you by Justin Upton. Hashtag Justin Up, All-Star 2014.
Can't wait to see who deflates the legacy.
Let's jump into some recruiting. A lot of things happening on the recruiting trail with the opening going on out in Oregon. Actually, I see a report from ESPN that has just tweeted a picture of the Clemson commitments that are at the opening. Deion Kane, Chad Smith, Noah Green, and Mitch Hyatt. I'll tell you this, Deion Kane is a very good-looking young man in terms of his physical build. I feel like Cornblue. This is what happens.
Cornblue alert.
He looks like a very well put together kid for
Tell
that
us
age.
more,
He
K-Man,
looks like
please.
he could play. Now this is why that Cornblue.
You got to watch that.
You sit in this chair too long.
Yeah.
You just start.
How's his shoulder width?
Yeah. All right, let's get into some recruiting. Defensive back, let's bail out as quickly as possible. Defensive back, Damon Arnett. He's from Fort Lauderdale. He was on the verge of committing to USC following a visit last month. He followed through on those plans last night, announcing a commitment on Twitter. He's the 21st commitment for the Gamecocks 2015 class and the 5th in the secondary. Arnett picked the Gamecocks over Ohio State and Kentucky. He made 2 visits to Columbia last month and saw the shiny parts of the football program, but that's not what sold him on being a Gamecock. He said it was all the little things, the basic things around campus that made South Carolina stand out. He sees himself fitting in easily with the Gamecock defense, and he says he is planning on sticking with that commitment. He's firm, even though he plans to follow through with a visit to Ohio State later this month. Running back A.J. Turner out of Centerville, Virginia, planned to announce his decision last night. Then he switched it to Thursday night. Then he switched it back to last night. Then he switched it back to Thursday night. It is going to be on ESPN Thursday night. That's when it was originally scheduled, and he is down to USC, Clemson, Virginia, Ohio State, and Michigan State. Running back Jordan Scarlett of Fort Lauderdale announced last night at the opening that he is going to commit to Miami over South Carolina. He had been committed to Florida Atlantic, but nobody expected that to stick, and it didn't. The Gamecocks made a run at him, but Scarlett never paid them a visit. Running back Ray McLeod from Tampa Bay will announce his decision on July 28th. Clemson is one of the main contenders along with Florida State, Florida, Miami, UCLA, and Maryland. USC commitment, a linebacker, Sherrod Pittman out of Jacksonville, who is also attending the opening, told 247 Sports he'll make an official visit this fall to Southern Cal, along with his teammate Tristan Payton, a receiver who's committed to Florida. Pittman has been committed to USC since July of last year and has always maintained a strong allegiance to the Gamecocks. Good on him to cash in on a free trip to Southern California.
There you go.
All expenses paid. Don't blame you one bit. Go see Los Angeles for free.
If I was a top recruit, I'd be mumbling something about, I've always been interested to go out to Hawaii.
Just want to see what the facilities are like.
If I'm not mistaken,
there.
Deuce Staley
He did.
took a visit to the University of Hawaii.
Deuce is no dummy. Deuce is a very smart guy. Defensive end Darian Roseborough of Lincolnton, North Carolina, spoke on the phone today with Alabama coach Nick Saban. Clemson is also one of his 6 finalists. Defensive lineman Tim Settle out of Manassas, Virginia, said at the opening he plans to start his recruiting over on September 1st. So mark your calendar. He said Clemson, Penn State, and Tennessee have been reaching out to him the most. Junior wide receiver Christian Bruce out of Wilson, North Carolina, he's grabbed an offer from NC State. And junior offensive lineman Sean Pollard of Southern Pines, North Carolina, has grabbed an offer from Clemson. USC has also offered. He camped at Clemson last month. A baseball note, left-handed pitcher Ryan Hare, 6'3", 200, out of Hudson, North Carolina, has committed to USC for its 2016 class. He's regarded as the top pitcher in his class in North Carolina and one of the best in the nation. DynamicBaseball.org has the breakdown of Hare. They call him one of the top left-handed pitchers in North Carolina, combining an upper 80s fastball with the true swing and miss changeup. On top of his ability to pound the zone, he has a phenomenal athletic ability. He runs a 6'5", 60. That's tonight's recruiting report.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned Scarlett. I just remembered this note that at the competition yesterday out at the Nike opening, South Carolina commit Mark Fields defeated Miami players Jordan Scarlett in the head-to-head race to win the fastest man at the Nike Spark competition. The final run, Fields ran a 4.3440. Scarlett posted a 4.38 in the finals. Now, both made the finals because in the morning, Fields ran a 4.33 and Scarlett a 4.3 even. And they said in all, 7 of the guys out there ran under 4.4 on Tuesday. But that's interesting. I didn't see the actual competition. I just picked up that note this morning and saw that.
Final break. We'll be back on the other side. We'll get into some emails, some Twitter conversation as well before we sign off for the night. Sports Talk continues on South Carolina Radio Network.
What happened to that Benz? LOL, LeBron. Let me work on my legacy a little bit more. Such a LeBron thing to do.
Well, LeBron's headed back to Cleveland. So all those people that burn their LeBron jerseys are going, darn, how much of those things going to run me now? Is he going to go back to 23? Is he going to stick with 6? Probably go back to 23.
It'd be interesting. He might want to refresh and go to another number. Who knows? But this, whether he goes wherever he goes, thank goodness. Now the dam can burst and everybody finds where everybody else is going to go. And that'll be the key to see what happens. And then Pat Riley have to scramble. Last-minute call to Carmelo, last-minute call to Minnesota, all kind of things that happens to see who ends up where as Miami has to rebuild now from scratch. And Chris Bosh might probably end up in Houston.
Yeah, Chandler Parsons has reportedly agreed to a deal with the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah,
but if Houston lands, Houston they have 3 days to match that.
Right.
But if they get Bosh, they might let Parsons walk and go with Bosh. And that'd be a nice little core there if you talk about Dwight Howard and Bosh and Harden. The West is still a beast right now. But you look at Cleveland, and there's already talk from guys in basketball circles that Cleveland has been working on a deal with Minnesota to get Kevin Love in there. And Love didn't want to go to Cleveland unless LeBron was going to be there. Now he's open to going. Kyrie Irving is re-signed. You have Wiggins, who they probably would trade to get Kevin Love. There's not a scenario I would imagine where they would keep Wiggins and get Kevin Love, but still.
I can see, and see, here's one piece that I think they can't get rid of, but they have to, and that's Anderson Varejao. I mean, one of those guys who just does all the dirty work, including getting into the other team's big men's head. And I think probably you could see Wiggins and Varejao going to Minnesota.
And Ray Allen, the South Carolina high school star,
there's talk that
he's going to go and take a pay cut to go there, and Mike Miller perhaps take a pay cut to go there. So that's where things look like they're going to stand. It looks like Carmelo Anthony's also going back to New York because, as people said, hey, one thing about Melo, it's about the money. Melo said, I'll go ahead and take the $129 million, let everything else work itself out, cash some checks. $129 million, New York City, you could do a lot worse.
And also the I guess the intangible carrot dangling in front of LeBron is the fact that Cleveland has not won a title, and I hate to mention this. They have not won a title since '64, when at 8 years old they had me crying because they beat my Baltimore Colts and Johnny Unitas in that championship game.
And you put the pro curse on them. You said you will never win again until LeBron comes back with a stacked team in Cleveland.
But back then, Cleveland had a guy by the name of Jim Brown that ran over everybody. Back then, they beat the Colts that year soundly, 27-0, but hadn't tasted the title since.
A lot of people going, I've been a Cleveland Cavaliers fan my whole life. Come on. I've always liked Cleveland. I never liked Miami. We'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place, to do it all again. Have yourself a great night.